She had spent weeks wanting her. Now Taylor had to prove she could stay, without charm, without control, and without losing the truth. The morning after the museum, I woke before my alarm and reached for my phone before I was fully conscious. This, on its own, was humiliating. I am not 23. I do not, as a rule, wake up emotionally attached to my phone. My mornings are usually disciplined, curated, and offensively well managed. Coffee, briefing notes, a skyline view, one beautifully tailored decision after another. That Thursday morning, however, I woke with the very specific ache of a woman who had done the right thing and hated every elegant second of it. Her last message was still there. I was acting like I was the only one at risk. Then, that doesn't mean I know what to do with you yet. And my answer, that makes two of us. I stared at the thread for longer than dignity permitted. Then I got out of bed, put on a robe I did not deserve, and walked barefoot into my kitchen where the city was still pale with early light and the coffee machine was the only thing in my life behaving predictably. Naomi called at 8:12. Status report, she said. I hate you. Good. That usually means you've thought about me before caffeine. I poured coffee into a cup and stood at the island looking out over the windows. She texted. Naomi made a soft please sound. And she admitted she'd been acting like she was the only one at risk. That's big. It is not, in fact, a measurable unit. It is if you're in love. I closed my eyes. There are moments when your oldest friend says something so accurate your body rejects it before your mind can process the insult. This was one of them. I'm hanging up. No, you're not. Naomi's voice softened just slightly. Are you going to see her? I looked down into my coffee as if it might contain better strategy than I did. I don't know. That's a lie. I exhaled. I know. Then here's the only useful thing I have for you this morning. Naomi paused. When you do see her, don't arrive as Taylor Ashford, patron saint of devastating entrances. Arrive as the woman who stopped. That landed where it should have. Because that was the point, wasn't it? Not that I wanted her. Not that she wanted me. That I had finally done something desire alone would never have chosen. At 10:46, a new message appeared. From Gabi. No preamble. Can we talk tonight? Somewhere that doesn't belong to either of us professionally. I stared at it, then smiled despite myself. That alone should tell you how far gone I was. I answered before I could rewrite it into something clever. Yes. 3 dots. Then. My apartment. 7:30. And don't bring anything expensive or persuasive. I laughed aloud in my kitchen. That removes several of my core competencies. Her reply came quickly. I'm counting on it. By 7:28, I was standing outside Gabrielle Delaney's apartment with empty hands and the strangest pulse I had felt in years. No flowers. No wine. No jewelry chosen for effect beyond the fact that all my jewelry is, to some degree, a decision. I wore cream knit and dark trousers, no silk, no armor. A coat soft enough not to feel like a weapon. I had left the driver 2 blocks away and walked because Gabi had earned enough truth from me by then to deserve no choreography. Her building was on a quiet street in the West Village, the kind lined with old brick and lit windows and the smug confidence of people who say they never wanted uptown anyway. Warm lobby. Narrow elevator. Good molding. Better taste than my first assumption had credited. Of course. When she opened the door, I forgot 3 complete thoughts in a row. She was barefoot. This is, I assure you, not a detail that should have carried the force it did. But there she was in soft charcoal trousers and a cream sweater with the sleeves pushed up, hair loose, face almost bare of makeup, and something about that combination, home, honesty, and the complete absence of public design, went through me like a private collapse. Hi, she said. It was absurd how much I wanted that word. Hi. She stepped back to let me in. Her apartment was exactly what it should have been and somehow more intimate for not trying too hard. Bookshelves. Plants that were actually alive. Warm lamps. Dark wood. A record player near the window. A kitchen visible from the living room with 2 mugs already waiting on the counter, as if she had known I would need something to hold. You made tea, I said. I didn't want wine-making decisions for either of us. That's ruthless. That's survival. I took off my coat and laid it over the back of a chair. She did not rush to fill the silence. Neither did I. That felt important. Like the room itself was waiting to see who we would be without urgency. Gabi handed me one of the mugs. Our fingers brushed. There it was again, that impossible fact of her. How even the smallest contact still felt like a sentence neither of us could skim. "Thank you," I said. She nodded once and leaned against the edge of the counter. Not far, not close enough to collapse the room into chemistry by accident. For a long moment we just looked at each other. The problem with wanting someone for this long is that by the time you finally get to the truth, it arrives crowded. Everything we had already done was in the room with us. The wine bar. The sidewalk. Brooklyn. The museum. All the times she had stepped back. All the times I had refused to let my hurt count as injury, because I still knew how to stand straight in public. Gabi spoke first. "I'm sorry. No performance. No decoration. Just that." And because I had spent enough weeks inside her silences to know what those 2 words cost, I did not interrupt. She looked down at her mug once, then back at me. "I kept telling myself I was being careful," she said quietly. "And sometimes I was. But not always." Her mouth tightened. "Sometimes I was angry that you could affect me like this, and I used distance to get some control back." I stayed still. Gabi's voice softened further. "And part of me knew I was hurting you. Feet. I just kept acting like your feelings must be safer because you're you." That landed exactly as hard as it should have. Because it was the truth. Because it was also the first time she had said it without trying to win. I set my mug down on the counter. "Thank you," I said. Her eyes flicked up. "For what?" "For not pretending it was only fear." Silence again. Then I took one breath and stepped into my part of it too. "I know what I look like from the outside," I said. "I know what rooms like that do to me. I know how easy it is to assume I'm running the same script with everyone." I held her gaze. And maybe for years I was, at least partly. Not maliciously, but fluently. Gabi did not move. I went on. "I know how to enter a room and make people feel chosen. I know how to let warmth do the work power usually does more badly." I smiled without humor. "I know exactly how frightening that can look when you don't know whether any of it changes when the room empties." Something in her face softened, not into pity, but recognition. I stepped closer. Not enough to touch her. "Then let me say this clearly," I said. "I do not want to do that to you. I don't want to overwhelm you into trust or charm you past your own instincts, or make you feel swept into something you can't stand inside later." My voice dropped. "And I don't want to keep pretending I'm less affected than I am just because I'm better dressed while it's happening." That finally got the breath out of her. Small. Shaky. Honest. Gabi set her mug down too. "I know," she said. Those 2 words nearly undid me more than anything hotter could have. Because there it was. Not certainty, but movement. "And if you're still here with me, tell me where you're listening from. I always want to know. And if you've been following these 2 impossible women all this way, like the video and subscribe." Channels don't grow on elegance alone, apparently. Naomi finds that deeply offensive. Gabi looked at me for one long second, then said the thing that changed the room. "I kept waiting for you to turn this into something beautiful enough that I'd stop asking hard questions. And you didn't." Her mouth moved, almost a smile. "You kept getting more honest instead. It was extremely inconvenient. That has been my experience too." She laughed then. Quiet. Warm. Unarmored. It went through me like mercy. There was still space between us. "A little less now." "I'm sorry," she said again, softer this time. "Not just for being afraid. For making you prove yourself over and over, like the wanting only counted if you suffered enough first. There are apologies you accept because they are correct. And apologies you accept because they reveal the person you were hoping was underneath the damage. This was the second kind." I nodded once. "Thank you," I said again. Gabi's eyes searched my face. Then, very gently, she asked, "Are you still angry?" "Yes." That startled a laugh out of her. "Good," she said. "I would have hated if you became gracious too fast." "I'm furious," I assured her. "I'm just also very relieved to be furious, honestly." That made her smile properly at last. God. There it was. That smile. That real one. The one David had gotten at the gala and I had nearly declared war over. It was mine now only in the most temporary dangerous sense. But it was here, in her apartment, because she had opened the door and told me the truth. Somewhere between one breath and the next, she took a step closer. Then another. I did not move. Not because I didn't want to. Because this mattered. Gabi stopped inches away, close enough that I could see the faintest rose in her cheeks, the way her pulse moved at the base of her throat, the exact point where her attention dropped to my mouth and then returned to my eyes as if seeking final clearance. "Taylor," she said softly. "Yes, I'm not running tonight." Every useful thought in my body stopped. I looked at her. She held my gaze. Then, because apparently she had decided I had earned exactly one clean undoing, she lifted her hand and touched my face first. Just the side of it. Warm fingers against my cheek. Gentle enough to be almost unbearable. And then she kissed me. There are kisses that begin as hunger. This one began as choice. That difference mattered so much I nearly felt it physically. I kissed her back slowly at first, because I wanted her to feel the difference too. No argument in it. No interruption. No heat sharpened by anger. Just the long, devastating relief of finally touching the woman I had wanted not only badly, but carefully. Her hand moved from my cheek to the back of my neck. Mine slid to her waist and stayed there, giving her time to stop me and knowing, all at once, that she would not. When I deepened the kiss, she made a small sound against my mouth that dissolved whatever was left of the room's caution. We moved. Not far. From kitchen to living room. From living room to the space beside the sofa where a lamp cast amber light across the rug. Everything about it felt less like a fall this time and more like crossing a threshold we had already been standing near for weeks. I kissed her jaw, then the line just below her ear, and felt her tilt into me without hesitation. "Still think I'm persuasive?" I murmured. She laughed softly, breathless. "That question feels dishonest right now." "Why?" "Because right now," she whispered, fingers curling into my sweater, "I'm not here because you convinced me." That went through me harder than almost anything else she had ever said. I kissed her again. Slower. Then not slower at all. Her hands found the hem of my sweater and flattened warm against my waist, then higher, just enough to make my breath catch. I felt the exact moment she noticed it, the small break in my control, the way my body told her the truth faster than my voice ever could. Gabi looked up at me, steady and completely present. "Stay," she said again, softer now. I kissed her answer instead of speaking. We moved without hurry, without the sharp edge that had followed us through the last few weeks. No anger. No argument. No one trying to prove anything. Just her mouth on mine, my hands at her back, the slow, unreal relief of finally touching without bracing for the stop. My sweater came off first. Then hers. Not in a rush. Not with clumsy urgency. With that careful, searching attention people only have when delay has made every inch matter. She pushed my sweater from my shoulders and let her hands rest there for a second, as if she wanted to feel the fact of me before anything else. I drew her sweater up slowly, watching her the whole time, giving her the chance to stop me, and when she lifted her arms without breaking eye contact, something low and warm went through me so hard it almost felt like gratitude. I kissed her collarbone, the hollow of her throat, the warm line of skin just below it. Her hand found my hair, not pulling, just holding, like she wanted proof I was really here, really with her, not performing softness, not borrowing intimacy from the room. "Taylor," she whispered. This time my name sounded nothing like trouble. I lifted my head and looked at her. Really looked. She was flushed, breathing unevenly, one hand still at the back of my neck, her whole face open in that rare way people only become open when they've stopped protecting themselves moment by moment. "You can still tell me to stop," I said quietly. Gabi's expression changed. Something tender, almost wrecked. "I know," she said. "I don't want to." That nearly undid me. I kissed her again, deeper now, and she stepped into me without hesitation. My hands moved over her back, her waist, learning her with slow certainty instead of hunger sharpened into impatience. She made a small sound when I touched her more firmly, and that sound went straight through me. Every time I slowed, she came closer, as if she needed me to understand that this was no longer me leading and her yielding. This was both of us choosing. Her hand slid over my back, then held there, not tentative anymore, not asking what this was, just answering it. We found the bedroom half by intention, half by instinct. She was laughing under her breath when we almost caught the edge of the rug, and I laughed too, because the moment was too real now to belong to any fantasy I might have had before it. She caught the front of my shirt, kissed me once, hard, quick, certain, and then softer, slower, until we were both breathing like we'd forgotten the room around us. By the time we reached the bed, the city had become nothing but a glow behind the curtains. I lowered her down carefully, and for one suspended second I just looked at her there, hair spilled loose, mouth flushed from kissing, eyes open and steady on mine. No distance. No retreat. No fear dressed up as composure. Just Gabi. I touched her cheek with the back of my fingers, then traced down her throat, over her shoulder, slow enough to feel the shiver move through her. "You're shaking," I murmured. "So are you," she whispered back. She was right. I kissed her until the trembling stopped feeling like nerves and started feeling like trust. Her hands moved over me with growing confidence, no longer cautious, no longer checking whether this would hold. Every time I paused, she reached for me again. Every time I gave her room, she chose me. And that was what made it different. Not the wanting. The choice inside the wanting. The way she touched me like she was done running. The way I touched her like I had nothing left to prove. The room narrowed to warmth, breath, soft sheets, skin under my hands, her mouth finding mine and then my shoulder, my neck, my jaw, as though she had finally given herself permission to stop measuring the cost of every feeling before she let herself have it. When I pulled back long enough to look at her again, she reached for me immediately, palm sliding over my side, fingers curling lightly as if the smallest distance had already become too much. "Don't go careful on me now," she said, voice low and unsteady. I smiled against her mouth. "That sounds reckless." "That," she murmured, "is not a no." After that, there was no room left for anything but each other. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Just the slow, beautiful collapse of every wall we had kept rebuilding by hand. Later, when everything finally quieted, I lay beside her with one hand low at her waist, my body still humming with the aftershock of her, and listened to the way both of us were breathing as if we had come through something larger than desire and softer than victory. For a long while we said nothing. There is a kind of silence that follows a night like that when it has solved nothing, and a very different kind when it has changed the shape of the room. This was the second kind. Gabi traced one idle line with her fingertip over the inside of my wrist. "You're quiet," she said. "I'm trying not to say something catastrophic." "That's wise." I was going to say, I admitted, that if I die tonight, I'll be furious at the timing but not the content. She laughed into my shoulder. She laughed softly. "You really are impossible after that too." "After?" I turned my head slightly toward her. "That implies there are periods in which I'm tolerable." Gabi lifted herself on one elbow and looked down at me. Her hair had come loose around her face. Her mouth was soft from kissing. There are moments when beauty becomes so specific it stops being a category and starts being intimacy. This was one of them. "I owe Naomi a great deal," I said. "For what?" "For not letting me ruin this with orchids." That got a full laugh out of her. "You were going to send orchids?" "No. I was going to send something much more manipulative." I paused. "Probably ranunculus." Gabi dropped her forehead briefly against my shoulder, laughing harder. I held her there with one hand at her back and thought, with a kind of stunned gratitude this was the part one hadn't known how to ask for. The normal part. The staying part. Later we ordered takeout and ate it in her kitchen wearing the nearest available clothes and no dignity whatsoever. At some point I ended up barefoot on her floor, leaning against the cabinets while she stood at the counter stealing dumplings off my plate and accusing me of being emotionally unwell in a way she now found annoyingly endearing. At some point she handed me one of her old shirts because mine no longer qualified as respectable. At some point I realized that the night had become ordinary in the exact way extraordinary things sometimes do when they are finally right. She fell asleep before I did. On her stomach, one arm under the pillow, hair half over her face. I lay beside her in the dark and let myself look without urgency for the first time. No need to persuade. No need to interpret. No need to wonder if she was about to leave. Just Gabi. Here. I have had beautiful nights before. That was not new. What was new was the peace. I woke to light and the smell of coffee. For one disorienting second, I thought I was home. Then I heard her in the kitchen, barefoot again, opening a cabinet and muttering something low when a spoon fell, and the entire memory of the previous night came back into my body with such warmth I had to close my eyes. When I came out of the bedroom, Gabi looked up from the stove. She was in a white t-shirt and soft trousers, hair tied up badly, one hand around the handle of a pan. I nearly fell in love on contact. This is why mornings are dangerous. They reveal things glamour usually protects you from. "Good morning," she said. "You're cooking." "I'm making eggs." That's much too domestic for a woman who used to flee every time I got within 3 feet of her. Gabi gave me a look. I made one strategic retreat. Several. One prolonged one. That's fair. She slid coffee across the counter toward me. You can add this to the list of things I've now done to repair your emotional health. I'll need more than eggs. You're getting toast too. Don't be greedy. I took the mug and stood there watching her move around her kitchen with the confidence of a person who belonged wholly to herself. It struck me then, not for the first time, but for the first time without resistance, that what I wanted was not simply her. Not only her body, her intelligence, her difficult mouth. I wanted the life of moments like this. Coffee. Morning light. No audience. Her. And if you've made it this far with us, leave a like, subscribe, and tell me where you're listening from, because at this point we've all earned some continuity. Also, if Naomi asks, I behaved beautifully and deserve public support. We stayed inside until nearly noon. Then we did something I had not expected and enjoyed more than I should have admitted. We went outside. No event. No gala. No foundation pretext. Just the city. Coffee from the corner place. A walk through the village. Her shoulder brushing mine on a narrow sidewalk. My hand at the small of her back only once. Briefly, instinctively, guiding her around a delivery cart, and this time when she glanced at me there was no flinch in it. Just awareness. And something calmer. At a bookstore, she held up a terrible biography of a billionaire and informed me it had your spiritual fragrance. I threatened never to forgive her. She bought it for Naomi. That afternoon she told me stories about her mother's piano students. I told her the truth about the first woman I ever loved and how badly I had handled letting her think charm counted as readiness. Gabi listened without interrupting, and when I finished she said, very quietly, "That must have been lonely." It was such an exact kindness I almost couldn't answer. That evening, when I left for my own apartment to shower and change for Monday, she walked me to the door. I touched the frame beside her and looked down at her for a second longer than was necessary. "So," I said. "So," she echoed. "Are we behaving strangely now? Or is this officially a situation?" Gabi smiled. "I think it became a situation several emotional injuries ago." "That seems correct." She reached up, straightened my collar for no reason except affection, and then said the one thing I had not realized I needed until then. "You don't have to perform calm with me." There it was again. That way she had of seeing the exact place I'd been carrying something too neatly. I touched her wrist. "That may take practice." "Good," she said. "I like difficult things." I've noticed. By Tuesday, Naomi knew everything. This is what happens when you have one close friend, one efficient assistant, and a face incapable of lying under excellent lighting. She arrived in my office at 11 carrying 2 salads and the expression of a woman who had won a bet against God. Well, I looked up from my laptop. "Good morning, Naomi." She set the food down. "Did you sleep with her?" I stared. Naomi sat opposite me and folded her hands. "I can save us both time." "Yes," I said. Her eyes closed briefly in satisfaction. "Finally." That is an appalling response to my emotional progress. It is a loving response to your emotional progress. She opened one of the salads and pushed it toward me. And what? Naomi gave me a look so withering it nearly improved the market. "And did the earth move? Or are we still pretending the important thing was communication?" I laughed then, helplessly, because only Naomi could say something that vulgar and somehow make it sound like strategic analysis. "The important thing," I said, "was communication." Naomi's brows rose. "And the earth?" I took a bite of salad I did not taste. Was adequately informed. Naomi put down her fork. I hate you both. I leaned back in my chair. She apologized. Naomi's face softened. And so did I. I looked down for a second, then back at her. We were both cruel. Naomi nodded once. Yes. She admitted she'd been using distance for control. And you? I admitted that fluency can look too much like safety from the outside. I exhaled. I admitted I know exactly how frightening I can be. Naomi was quiet a moment. Then gently, and did she stay? I smiled before I meant to. Yes. Naomi took in my face and shook her head very slightly. Well, that's that then. No, I said. That's not that. That's the beginning. Naomi pointed her fork at me. Good. Keep that attitude. The minute you start acting like this means you've won something, I'll hit you with the billionaire biography. By Friday, the city had already begun conspiring to turn spring into a public performance, which meant everyone in Manhattan was suddenly wearing optimism and underestimating pollen. The Foundation's community launch event had finally arrived, a real one this time. Not a donor gala pretending philanthropy was a personality trait. Press, partners, city people, artists, community leaders, staff. The kind of event where image mattered, yes, but not more than who actually showed up to do the work. Gabi had helped build half the thing. I was speaking. Naomi, naturally, was attending for sport. When I found Gabi backstage before the program, she was reviewing notes with one of the coordinators, all focus and low-voiced authority. She looked up when I came in, and something in her face changed immediately. Warmth, yes, but something steadier than that too. No flinch. No public distance. Just me. My body responded so fast it was almost embarrassing. The coordinator excused herself. Gabi stepped closer. You look good. That sounds dismissive. You look very good. Better. Her eyes moved once over the dark suit, the cream blouse, the restraint I had chosen because the day belonged to the work and because I had finally learned that not every entrance needed to feel like a dare. You look dangerous when you're virtuous, she said. That's slander. That's pattern recognition. I smiled and touched 2 fingers briefly to the inside of her wrist. Nothing dramatic. Nothing hidden either. Her gaze dropped to the touch, then returned to my face. This mattered too. The public version of not running. Will you be out there when I speak? I asked. Gabi's expression softened. Yes. And after? She held my eyes. After too. There is a particular kind of relief that only arrives when the person you want most no longer feels like a moving target. I had not known how tired I was until that moment. The event went well. Better than well. Honest. Warm. Full. Real people in the room. Real stakes. The kind of afternoon where donors had to stand quietly beside school administrators, artists, neighborhood organizers, and the women who actually did the work once speeches were over. I spoke for 8 minutes. Not about generosity. About obligation. Not about the company's vision. About partnership. And once, just once, when the room laughed where I wanted it to, I looked toward the second row and found Gabi watching me with the kind of open attention I had once used to ruin myself on other people. Only now it didn't feel like danger. It felt like being accompanied. After the applause, after the handshakes, after the interviews and the congratulations and the mayor's deputy saying something flattering and over-caffeinated, I finally made it through the receiving line toward the back of the hall where Gabi stood near a display table with Naomi. Naomi took one look at me and said, "Well, if this isn't nauseating." "You're glowing," Gabi said. Naomi sighed. "See? Nauseating." I ignored her and looked at Gabi. "You stayed." "Yes." "Voluntarily." Gabi tilted her head. "Do you need verbal confirmation every 10 minutes now?" "Possibly." Naomi made a thoughtful face. "Actually, yes. That would be funny. We should all encourage it." Before I could answer, David Lang appeared at the edge of our little triangle like the ghost of an old inconvenience. For one strange second, all 3 of us simply looked at one another. He took it well, to his credit. "Taylor. Gabrielle." His gaze moved between us, taking in something. Perhaps the air, perhaps my face, perhaps the fact that Gabi did not shift an inch away from me. Congratulations on the launch. Thank you, David, Gabi said. He smiled politely at her, then at me. I'll let you both celebrate. Naomi. Naomi raised 2 fingers in a blessing or a threat, and then he was gone. I looked at Gabi. She looked back. There are people in your life who mark turning points not by what they say, but by the fact that they no longer matter in the same way. David had become one of those. Was that terrible? I asked softly. Gabi's mouth curved. No. What was it? She stepped 1 inch closer and, with Naomi very much there and very much enjoying herself, let her fingers brush mine openly before she answered. It was finished. That one line soothed something in me I had not realized was still looking over its shoulder. Naomi, of course, ruined the softness at once. Well, she said, now that legal has been cleared from the premises, are you 2 planning to keep staring at each other in public, or should I alert the staff? Naomi, I said. Yes. Have some dignity. She smiled into her glass. That left me sometime between Brooklyn and the museum, and frankly, I haven't missed it. Later, when the room had thinned and the last photographs were done, I found Gabi near the loading entrance helping one of the staff pack event materials back into storage crates. I leaned against the doorframe and watched her for a second. No glasses today. No silk armor either. Just competence. Ease. The woman herself. She looked up and caught me smiling. What? I like that after everything, you're still the kind of person who helps stack your own event. Gabi straightened. And I like that after everything, you're still the kind of person who notices. I stepped inside, took the folder from her hand, and set it on the nearest table. We're leaving, I said. Are we? Yes. That sounded suspiciously like the old Taylor. I moved closer until there was almost no distance left between us. No, I said. The old Taylor would have assumed. Gabi's eyes lifted to mine. I touched the side of her face, just once. The current Taylor is asking. Feet. Then her hands settled over mine. Ask again. I smiled slowly. Will you come home with me? Gabi studied my face for a second longer, as if she had every right to and intended to use it fully. Then she said very softly, yes, there are victories. And there are permissions. I had finally learned the difference. That night, back at my apartment, the city spread beneath the windows in silver and blue, the rooms warm with low lamps, and the sort of quiet you only notice once no part of you is bracing for departure. Gabi stood by the bar cart looking out over Manhattan, one hand around a glass of water, the skyline reflected faintly in the dark glass behind her. I came up behind her and rested my chin lightly against her shoulder. This, I murmured, feels illegal. Why? Because for once I know where you are. She turned in my arms and looked up at me. Not amused. Not guarded. Just there. Taylor. Yes. I'm here. Simple sentence. Total effect. I touched my forehead to hers. Yes, I said. I know. We stayed in that quiet for a while, her hands warm at my waist, mine at the small of her back, the city glowing around us like something expensive and irrelevant. Then she said the word that had changed everything between us before and somehow meant even more now. Stay. I looked at her. This time it wasn't about not running. It wasn't about what had happened between us, though that was still very much alive between us. It wasn't about urgency at all. It was about tomorrow, and the day after that, and the ordinary shape of a life that finally had room for both of us inside it. So I kissed her once, softly, and said the only answer that had ever really mattered. Yes. And this time she did too. So tell me in the comments, what touched you most in the final part? Was it Gabi apologizing? Taylor finally coming without the performance? The fact that they got to be soft with each other after all that fire? Or the simple way stay changed from desire into choice? And whose heart did you feel the most through the whole series? Taylor's, Gabi's, or Naomi's running commentary on all of it? If this story stayed with you, like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And tell me where you listened from. I always want to know who's here at the end of a love story.